Hi everyone. I work for a company which specialises in helping companies deliver products which are used for delivery of nicotine either through ENDS devices or through other mechanisms to allow the administration of nicotine. Previously, my background has been in pharmaceutical drug development, which I've done for many years. And the purpose of this short talk, I'm going to show you some of the regulatory differences between the tobacco environment or the nicotine environment and the pharmaceutical drug development environment, and also some of those similarities. To make this a little easier to follow, I've split it up into two distinct sessions, one on similarities and one on differences. Okay, so let's think about similarities. And you would imagine that for a consumer product and a medical product, there wouldn't necessarily be that many similarities, but you'd be surprised.
Although one is a consumer product and the other is a treatment to either cure or alleviate disease symptoms, both need to be subject to regulatory review and approval before they can be sold in any particular market worldwide. The reviewing regulatory bodies are the same organisations. For example, the FDA in the USA and the EMA in Europe. Although in the US, the review will be conducted by a specific group of the FDA called the Center for Tobacco Products, or the CTP. Most importantly, the purpose of the toxicology evaluation is to protect both public health and minimize harm to the product users, whether that's for a tobacco product or for a medicine. In the hazard assessment for a tobacco product, especially an e-cigarette and a medical product, there is an in-depth assessment of the pharmacological agent, whether that is nicotine or a new chemical entity, i.e. an NCE, and the excipients in the formulation, the degradation products, and any extractables and leachables that may form in the presentation of the material. In the assessment of e-cigarette constituents, there are very complex formulations, often containing natural products, such as flavourings. Much of the hazard information about these components comes from desk-based searches of databases and authoritative sources, and also in silico modelling. The hazard assessment information for medical products is generally generated through experimental investigations using a variety of in vivo models at incremental doses and increasing durations of exposure. In order to perform a risk assessment for either an e-cigarette or a medicine, there needs to be an assessment of the extent of human exposure to the test article and the aerosol produced. For a medical product, this is relatively straightforward, as the clinical studies are conducted to determine an efficacious and safe dosage, and this is then made into, for example, tablets in the optimal qualities to obtain patient benefit when following a specific dosing regime. For an e-cigarette, establishing the amount of aerosol to which a consumer is exposed is very much more difficult, as there is significant individual variation in the number of puffs per day, the duration of each puff, the intensity of the puffing regime, and the time between exposure sessions. This means that a typical daily intake needs to be estimated based on measured topography data and visualization of the user's behavior, often in clinical studies, and other relevant information that can be obtained from user surveys and clinical literature. To ensure that a risk assessment adequately assesses the risk from the e-cigarette aerosol constituents, a predicted exposure near to what is estimated to be to the maximum daily exposure level is generally used. Another key similarity of the regulations for both types of products are the submission dossier formats and the mechanism of submission. For a medical product, the dossier is typically either an NDA or an MAA, depending upon the market in which the product is intended to be sold. The document components are modular and are in a format accepted by regulatory agencies worldwide called an ECTD, which stands for Electronic Common Technical Dossier, and it contains CMC, which is analytical, non-clinical and clinical components. In the USA, there is a similar document for tobacco products, which is submitted in a pre-market tobacco application, a PMTA, called an ETTD, or an Electronic Tobacco Technical Dossier, which has a format similar to the ECTD, and it too contains analytical and manufacturing, non-clinical and clinical components. This ETTD is specific to the USA requirement currently and is not used elsewhere. Both an ECTD and an ETTD are submitted to the FDA for review via an electronic portal for uploading documents.